for those that don't know who you are, just tell the world, who are you?
I'm Lil Sach.
Sach, welcome to BRIT Asia TV. It's actually been a journey to try and find
Thanks, man. Yeah, man. Hey, you know what? You're like Sherlock Holmes, obviously. I'm from the UK. You got to find me, and you did a great job, bro.
That's it. But the mad thing about Lil Sach was kind of growing up, right? It was when we were growing up, it was more of just a name, right? It was Lil Sach. And to be honest, I thought Gun MC was Lil Sach, right? And then slowly, right, we started seeing, you started appearing in music videos later and later on. But your kind of your introduction to music came a lot earlier. Like for me, my introduction to you was, Soni Langewali and Lishkare Tere Kokeda. These were the anthems that defined, the legacy of Bhangra music in the era. And your name was attached to it. Then what happens is people start finding your original kind of albums. Then people start associating, hold on, this is DJ SANJ's younger brother. And it was RDV TV that did that. RDV TV was the ones that said, yo, Lil Sach is, DJ SANJ's brother. But yo, let's take back to the music, man, because firstly, where you been? Like, where have you been? Like, why did you, let's talk about why you left music afterwards, right? But let's take it from the start. Like, where did it begin for Lil Sach? Because obviously Sanj has told, his story and his jigsaws, etc. But it's only right that we get the other side to the story to kind of complete that kind of jigsaw, right?
Yeah, man. Look, honestly, I was following my brother. He's my older brother. I love the guy, right? So I saw what he was doing. And for me, I like to, even back then, I like to associate myself with people that are doing excellent stuff, like getting after it. And Sanj was at the forefront and pioneering all this stuff. So I was like, hey, bro, can you help me out? I want to kind of join in and have some fun with you. So he really brought me along. And if it weren't for Sanj, I would have never done it, to be honest.
Yeah. And you guys kind of created this sound, right? And again, I would say, Sanj pioneered the sound, right? Sanj was the spearhead of this movement. You guys were known as, America's Most Wanted. And people that don't know who America's Most Wanted were, it was Sanj, Lil Sach, Sound Ministry, Karan MC, Binda Bajwa, U5 kind of started this kind of movement. And we're 2023. The sound's still fresh.
Yeah, I mean, it's, okay, so it is, man. Like, look, we grew up listen to hip hop, dancehall, reggae, a lot of this, the influences that were around us in Toronto or Dallas or wherever we were living, right? And we noticed, not even noticed, organically, we just started doing that kind of sound. We didn't really worry about what you guys were kind of doing, in terms of whatever it was, because we had our own audience. And from there, it just kind of expanded. It was crazy, man. We didn't think anything was going to go the way it did, but it did.
Now, let's kind of take it to the very first album, because we had a conversation offline, and the first album kind of threw me off of how the first album came about. So the first album was literally called Lil Sach, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was the best album. The cover was the best cover you could get for it. It was a picture of me, and it was such a freshy picture. And so I was talking to Sanj. So at the time, I was in the military, right? And I was still working. I was still doing my thing, the sound, a little bit of production work and whatnot. And then Sanj was like, hey, let's do an album. And I was also doing a bit of modeling too. And so the pictures that I had were some modeling pictures, and Sanj's like, okay, we're gonna cut this album and I'm gonna throw this picture on there. And I was in basic training in the military at the time. I was like, yeah, man, go do whatever you need to do. And he told me after the fact though, he released the album and everything, had all the songs I gave him all the stuff. And then months later, he's like, yeah, we cut an album and we threw that picture on there. I was like, okay, man. It was a trip.
But did you ever think that, a career would be made from music? Because you wasn't and I mean this with all due respect, you wasn't necessarily the face of anything. The face was, Sanj. Sanj was the guy that was essentially the motor kind of running everything ahead. And he's openly said in the past, he was creating so much content that he had to create aliases. He had to create various aliases, various kind of teams to put this music out there. And you know, the brand Lil Sach kind of fell into that. You know, there was a lot of collaborations where Sanj was kind of just, you know, giving to you and say, yo, run with it. You know, how was it to kind of see the brand Lil Sach just getting bigger and bigger? Because, you know, then came, you know, Soin Lenge Waliye. Then came, you know, Lishkare Tere Kokeda. And again, it was just like, these songs were just blowing up. Like, how did it change?
Crazy, man.
Yeah.
It was crazy, man. Like, I remember when Lishkare came out, I mean, I didn't know anything. I was living in Canada. I was in Vancouver at the time when Lishkare came out. And I was doing my thing. You know, I was actually going to school at that time. And Lishkare came out. And then I think one of the radio stations in the UK, it hit the charts, like, you know, top 5 or whatever it was. And they were like, yeah, we want to do an interview with you. I was like, who wants to talk to me? It's like, why do you want to call me and ask me what? Like, it was a trip, man, because I was super shy. Like, that's part of the reason why I didn't want to, you know, have sort of like be at the front. I was like super shy. And so that was kind of cool when Lishkare came out. For me, it was because I was so shy, it kind of kept a bit of a separation, but I was digging it from a distance. I was like, this is crazy, man.
And how did it kind of transform you guys? Because, you know, from the gigging point of view, right? You know, the clubbing scene was just erupted then, right? It was huge. You know, how was it on the road with Lado?
Man, it was hilarious. For me, like, look, Sanj, he has a passion for this stuff, right? And this is what Sanj kind of is meant to do. And in terms of music, for me, it was just fun, right? I didn't really have the passion like Sanj does. And so I was just having a good time. So I was going like touring with Cal. Sanj was in the UK at the time. And we were doing gigs in LA, Dallas, New York, just different places. And yeah, I remember. Okay, I'm gonna share this one story. It's kind of funny. So we're in LA, right? It's me and Cal, and it was some gig, and I can't even remember now. So we're talking like 20 some odd years ago, but it was like one of those university kind of culture shows over a period of a week, right? And so we were the headline, me and Cal, and you know, I was a rowdy kid, man. I was like, you know, I'd like to have a bit of fun while I was there at any gig. So, and Sanj knew that. So Sanj was like, hey man, you guys don't do anything stupid. Like, just don't do anything, just kind of do your thing and then, and peace out, right? We're like, cool, right? Me and Cal were like, we're not gonna do anything, we're just gonna do our music and we're gonna bounce. And so the promoter calls we're all hanging out, parties getting massive, everything's getting crazy, and then we start seeing a fight happen in one of the corners, right? And at this time, me and Cal just finished our set, and now we're in the corner of the dance floor, just kind of watching, right? And then this fight starts happening, and it's the promoter that's getting in a fight, right? And he gets a beer bottle smashed in his head. And me and Cal are just sitting in the corner watching, right? It's like, okay, it's cool, right? He gets mangled, and then afterwards, you know, me and Cal took him to the hospital. We took him to the hospital. We sat in the emergency room for like 5-6 hours, and this guy was apologizing to me and Cal. So he's like, hey, bro, sorry about what's going on, because, you know, this, that, and the other. I was like, hey, man, you got like 15 stitches in your freaking brain, man. We're good. So then afterwards, Sanj got pissed off at us. Like, he's like, I go, you didn't help him? You didn't jump in? I was like, no, you told us not to do anything. So we didn't do anything. Otherwise, I would have jumped in, right? But Andrew's saying, hey, don't do anything. You got to be careful. So we didn't do.
How was it kind of working with Sanj? Because the work ethic the guy had, you know, I feel like it's not kind of talked about enough. Like, the anthems he has under his name, insane. The catalog he has is unreal, right? But what was the work ethic like working with your brother? Because the reality of it is Sanj was the one putting out a lot of this music. You know, he was one bringing people to the table.
Yeah, I think, look, I think Sanj doesn't really get the credit that he probably deserves, even to this day, right? Like, over the last 20, 25 years, I mean, he's a pioneer, man, and a lot of the music that people listen to don't even know he made them, the songs and stuff. So for me, it was a pleasure being around him and watching how he worked and how hard he worked, and how professional he was in that environment. Because for, you know, you going out like me, I wasn't professional when I was saying, I was going partying, right? Professional. So for me, it was a good learning experience to understand how to properly do things. And I suspect he got that work ethic from my dad, or our dad, because our dad was like a hard worker, right? So I kind of learned a bit of that from Sanj and my dad, and yeah, it was, man, it was pretty legit. Like I remember times we're sitting in the studios, like I remember when we were in Vancouver at the time, and we had a studio in our house, and Sanj would be in there like 20 hours a day, like it just like all day, and I would just go in there, kind of hang out, watch, assist wherever I could. But it was more for me, honestly, it was like a learning process. I was just learning.
Awesome. Yeah. And then like, there's one thing that Sanj kind of used to say in the tracks, which was, you know, the envy of all producers. You know, when we were younger, we're like, yo, maybe he's referring to a record label, etc., like MV Roma, because MV Roma as a record label had a lot of big names on it, right? But you guys were the envy of a lot of producers. He was the envy of a lot of producers. Did you ever kind of feel the hostility between, like, you know, because realistically, you guys were North American. You're coming into the UK market and you're disrupting everything.
Yeah, taking over.
You're taking over, right?
Well, we were like an interrupt. We were like disrupting because it was all garage music or garage or however you can say it, right? It was all house, techno, this kind of stuff, right? And I didn't like that music personally, right? And it was hard to dance, especially for us. Like I like Punjabi sounds, and the Punjabi sounds seem to fit better with like a hip hop beat, right? So it was easier to dance to, and it was more, and so that's kind of like, in UK, at least when I was there, I was like, holy shit, man, like some people don't like us. Like it's I thought it would, and so you know some beefs in and scrap things like that. You know, but again, we were kids too, right? Like we're talking about 25 years ago. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to experience, even though some of the interactions that we had weren't positive.
So one question, like, you know, I want to kind of know is, you know, you as a kid, right? Like, you know, the America's Most Wanted team, you were young, you know, you found success at a very, very kind of young and early age. But then, you know, how did it impact you? Because you mentioned, like, you know, you was rowdy, you was like into drinking culture, etc. Your brother, someone on the other hand, who's openly spoken about, like, he doesn't drink, he's kind of focused, business is business. You know, what kind of impact did it have on you, and how did you kind of see it impacting those around you?
So, yeah, like you said, Sanj was, he, like you said, don't get me wrong, Sanj would have fun, but he would never let it affect anything. So, like, it was all business for him, right? Like, even at gigs, he would go in and out, right? But for me, I looked at it at the beginning as like, oh, cool, I'm having fun, because it wasn't really my focus for a career. I was just having a good time. And I was doing some other things on the side in terms of what I had planned on doing for my future. And so I started, you know, for me, like I was saying, I'm a super shy guy. And to go into the clubs or party or all these things, I would, to help myself kind of get in and get into a groove of actually having a good time, I'd drink. And I would drink quite a bit. And so it affected me and the people around me over a period of time, right? So, and I saw a lot of the people around me getting hammered, and a lot of fights, and a lot of inappropriate things that, you know, or not even inappropriate, but like more things that would happen at a young age that probably shouldn't be happening, and likely affected me in a negative way that, yeah.
And then there was a moment when, you know, the music industry is kind of evolving, and the name Lil Sach just disappeared. You know, this.
That it did, man.
And there's a picture that you know, BRIT Asia TV posted of, you know, the original America's Most Wanted crew, and it was like, the caption was the originators of Desi hip hop. So Desi hip hop that you hear now, like these guys doing, you guys were the originators of it. But when you look at that picture, everyone in that picture kind of disappeared apart from Sanj. Like, what happened to Lil Sach? When did you realize that that's it? The journey's over. Like, did you decide the journey's over, or collectively did you decide that, you know what? Like, you know, it's time to call it?
I think I decided, Yeah, no, that's a good question, man. And thanks for asking it. Like I was saying before, Sanj was passionate about this stuff, right? About music, about what he was doing. That's why he still was there, right? That's why everyone else disappeared. And that's why he's still been doing it for 25 years. Because just he loves it, right? And that's who he is. That's just authentically who he is as a person. That's what wasn't who I was as a person. So for me, I knew it wasn't my passion. And so I just kind of stopped, and I was trying to find my passion. I was trying to find my purpose. And essentially you asked the question at the beginning, where did you go? And really over the last 20 years, that's what I've been trying to figure out. Like, what's my purpose? What's my passion? And that's kind of what I've been doing over the last little while.
So let's kind of close this music journey like chapter, right? Did you have closure when you left the music industry? Or was it just a case of, like you said, like you wasn't really bothered about the journey? It was just a phase in your life that kind of, it worked and it was time to kind of, move on.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of like that, man. Like, I mean, it was kind of like, okay, well, I've done my thing here. And to be honest, I saw it that environment and that lifestyle was negatively impacting me in a way that would have lasted a really long time had I stayed into that genre or that sort of career. So in my best interest, it was better to kind of move into a different direction to find my purpose. And that's kind of what I've done. And but I loved every part of it, man. Like reflecting back, because like, I'll be honest, I've kind of compartmentalized that part of my life. So I don't think of it ever. And no, that's not a good thing. So that's why I'm super happy that you guys found me, so that I kind of reconcile that piece again and sort of embrace it from a perspective where I'm more of me.
Yeah.
Authentically.
Yeah.
So now I can embrace it and I can love it and properly be part of it. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
There's this one kind of question I want to ask just for the music side of things, right? It's, you've been on this journey, right? And there is a dark side to the industry that people don't realize. What is your kind of advice to these kids that are coming into the industry, coming in for the wrong reasons, who don't know how to kind of control their egos, who don't know how to kind of work together? Like, there is danger in this industry, right? There is danger mentally, there's danger physically. What would you kind of say to these kids that are coming to the scene who want to jump on this journey?
So I can only speak for myself and how it, where I was at that time, and what would have benefited me had I understood it better. And I think for me, my ego, and I think a lot of people who are getting into this field and career, doing it for the wrong reasons. I want to be famous. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want this many clicks. I want that, this, that, and the other. I want to feel good about myself so people look at me on TV, like all this kind of stuff, right? And I think Sanj had a good perspective. He just loved the thing. He loved doing it. So it wasn't so much he was trying to be somebody that he wasn't, right? And I don't want to point fingers at anybody, but it seems like some people nowadays, or even actually not even nowadays, really the last 20 years of the industry, a lot of people are getting into it not because they love music. They're getting into it because they want to be somebody and get some money and this, that, and the other and feel special. The reality is, if you're going into the music business, first go into it for love and passion. Because if you're doing anything with a passion, you'll do it for the rest of your life. That's why Sanj is still doing it. And that's why everyone else is pieced out.
And there's just, I know I said one last question for music, but there's just one last question for the last music segment, right? And I just want to hear you say it one more time. When we talk about Desi hip hop, who is the originators of Desi hip hop?
The originators of Desi hip hop is Sanj, number one, and then the North America's Most Wanted crew. Straight up, man. Like, so I think, and I'm not saying that to pump our egos. It's just the reality. It's facts, right? We were doing a lot of things 20 years ago and laid a foundation for everybody else who's killing it now. It's so awesome to see, man. It's so awesome to see like cats like Icky, Sidhu, and all these kind of guys who are producing at a high level production-wise. I mean, and they're doing hip hop stuff, man. It's freaking awesome. God Knowledge, all these guys are doing really awesome stuff, and it's cool to see. And I'm happy that these guys are making music that is authentic to who they are. It's awesome to see, man.
The Sach, let's kind of talk about, okay, so Lil Sach went, then Sach and left.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to since, man? Like I found you on social media, right? But a lot of people wonder what happens to artists after an artist kind of disappears. But let's kind of talk about not where you're at now, but the journey up to where you got to now. Like, you know, you mentioned that you was in the Marines, you mentioned it in the Army. Like, you know, why did you choose that career? Like, why was that important to you?
I didn't understand then, but I understand more now. I was compelled to serve, right? So I didn't know how to do it. So the military was the first kind of way to do it for me. And I had that sort of ideas because I've had a family history, a lineage of warriors, right? And most of my family has been in policing and military in India and in Punjab. So for me, it was a natural sort of thing for me to do. And now that I reflect back on it, I was actually compelled to join the military. I was like, okay, I want to join. And I didn't understand why, but now I understand it's because I just want to be of service, right? And so what I ended up doing is join the military. I did that for a couple of years, and then I got out, went back to school. I studied criminal justice, right? And then I've been working in law enforcement for the last 18 years. I'm a K-9 handler, and I've been serving my community in that capacity for 18 years. And it's been amazing. But now I have another calling, and I'm kind of closing the chapter on my law enforcement career, and I'm transitioning out to focus on my next sort of passion and service, and I'm moving in that direction now.
You know, you mentioned this kind of warrior lineage, warrior bloodline. You know, it's important that we kind of remember who we are, where we come from, our origins. You know, why do you think that so many of the youth are kind of forgetting, like, you know, we were once kings, we were once warriors, and we should still kind of be warriors. Like, we shouldn't kind of step away from our identity.
We are warriors, right? Like, there's no we are, because if you're from Punjab, the likelihood you have a lineage dating back some years that says you're a warrior, right? Now, I'm not a religious person or a preaching type of individual, but there's a lot of, Google it. A lot of people can understand why we're warriors, right? And so for me, like, my great-grandfather was in the British Indian Army, and he served in World War I, and he was awarded distinctions in valor, right? My great uncle was also in the Indian Army, and he served with distinction. He was instrumental in creating military intelligence in India. So it's like that's a natural sort of thing that he did. And then my grandfather was chief of police in Punjab. Okay, so he was superintendent of Punjab Police. So, and then my Taya was colonel in the Indian Army, and then scores of other family members or the generals, colonels, all served, right? So for me, I draw a lot of strength from that, so that I can continue doing what I'm doing in terms of the service that I currently do now.
And let's talk about the now. And I think what you're doing absolutely now, like, the world kind of needs to know. Like, we spoke offline, and like I said to people, I felt overwhelmed with kind of knowledge and kind of information that you kind of gave me, because you don't think about these things, right? But, just for those that don't know, and, are following you on social media, like, the journey you're on now is pretty amazing. Like, what is this journey? And, how did you get involved in this journey?
Yeah, man. Well, first, thanks for asking me. It's been epic. It's been absolutely surreal the last 2, 3, 4 years of my life, that I never thought in a million years I would be in this situation. Now, so I mean, I can start kind of like maybe dating back maybe 3, 4 years ago. Pandemic kicks off like everyone else. A lot of people struggled through that process, right? No matter, it doesn't matter who you are. A lot of people suffered and struggled, and some more than others, but nonetheless, there was struggle. And I was no different. And so for me, I have anxiety and depression, and I've always had it from a young age. I just never knew it until the pandemic kicked off, when I started really having some major issues. And when the pandemic kicked off, I started really struggling with anxiety and depression, because I wasn't really engaging with a lot of people, because like everyone else, we were locked down. We couldn't hang out, couldn't do anything. And I was dealing with some personal issues and work issues. A lot of things were kind of transpiring that were really affecting me in a negative way. And for me, so I'm an athlete, right? I mean, I've always been an athlete. I've always been super active at a high level. And for me, I would use physical activity as a way to manage my mental health, right? And the pandemic kicks off, and now I can't do that. And I'm an avid jiu-jitsu player and bodybuilding and things like that. And I was training jiu-jitsu pretty much every single day, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, every single day for like a while.
Yeah.
And for your listeners who may not understand mental health or depression or anxiety, depression really kicks in when you're not connecting with people, right? When you're not engaging at just making connection. And if anyone knows anything about jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of connection. You're going in, you're hanging out. It's like a brotherhood, sisterhood. It's like you're having fun. Like there's a lot of that, right? And so pandemic kicks, I couldn't lift, I couldn't do jiu-jitsu, and now my mental health starts spiraling. It's getting out of control. Like I ended up having a major depressive episode, which is like, so, and I want to be pretty honest here, because I think it's important that I'm honest, or as vulnerable as I possibly can be for your listeners, so that they can feel, or at least they can see reality, right? And for me, I'm a type of guy who's never succumbed or felt like succumbing to that kind of mental health issue, because I thought it would be weak, right? Oh yeah, this, that, and the other, right? No. So I feel it's like I'm obligated now to step up and say my experience and explain certain things, because I'm a pretty tough guy as it relates to a lot of things. So I think I'm taking that step now. So what I'm saying is the anxiety and depression really started affecting me. I ended up seeing a doctor. A major depressive episode is essentially, if you were to define it, it's 2 weeks or more of 3 hours less sleep, and severe anxiety levels where you're constantly overwhelmed. You can't just, it's hard to manage things. And that was lasting for a year. And I was having limited amounts of sleep for about a year, 2, 3, 4 hours, that's it. And so I was like, holy moly, man, I need to figure myself out, or it's going to be a bad day. So what ended up happening was I was struggling a lot, and I didn't know how to help myself, to be honest. And most of my friends over the last 18 years in law enforcement, I mean, people kind of grow apart, like naturally, right? People just kind of, relate to each other or don't. And so at that time I was super alone, super isolated, wasn't hanging out with too many people. And so what I did was I bought a couple books for myself. And I read these 2 books. One book was a book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. And he's a retired Navy SEAL, leadership, this, that, and the other. And I read that book, and I started owning a lot of things that I was doing in my life that was contributing to my negative mental health, so that I could take responsibility for those things. And then the second book I bought was a David Goggins book, Can't Hurt Me. David Goggins, again, another Navy SEAL, retired, an ultra endurance athlete, and all around motivational type of fella. And so I read the first 2 chapters of that book, and it resonated with me, and I started relating to kind of what he was saying in that. And so I was like, you know what, let me start running. And I hadn't ran, I'm 45 now. I hadn't ran since I was 18, right? And I started running 3 years ago. So I put on a pair of shoes, and I was like, okay, man, let me and I was never good at running. I would never liked it. Like most people, everyone hates it. Everyone hates it. You show me one person that likes running when they first start. Nobody, right? So I was like, okay, man, I gotta figure out how to fix my brain. Let me just start running. So I scheduled myself to do 3 5K runs a week. So what was that? You guys do kilometers or miles in the US, UK?
Both.
Because okay, so we're doing 5. Well, I was
It's like 5K, yeah.
sometimes okay, so 5K. Okay, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I would do 5K each of those days, right? And I would just go, and I wasn't super fast, 35, 40 minutes, whatever I could get done. But what I recognized immediately when I started doing that, I made a connection to Sanj, in the sense that Sanj had that work ethic for music. He had that work ethic for and passion for music. I found it immediately into physical activity. And so for me, I just got into it and I went all in. And within a short period of time, I kept pushing myself. It wasn't easy. Just like working 20 hours in a studio isn't easy, but I was pushing myself. Excuse me. And so what I did was, after 2 months of kind of consistently running those 5Ks, I was like, you know what, man, I'm going to run 21, just see what happens, right? And it was the weather wasn't good. It was in November in Vancouver. It's raining. It was super cold. I had shoes that were probably 10 years old. I didn't know what I was doing, and I just kind of went out. Kind of like anybody who's listening to this, probably, right? And I went out. I was out for about 2.5, 3 hours in the rain, and just kind of, and it wasn't me trying to be a badass. It was just, man, I was looking for some way to out myself because I was struggling. And so I did that, and man, I tell you what, after I spent about 2.5 hours in the rain running that 21K, I was limping towards the end because my foot was swollen. I was so happy. I was so happy because I did something I never thought in a million years I could do. And I was so happy because no one told me to do it. I did it on my own. So what that did for me was elevate my self-worth, elevated my self-confidence, and elevated my self-esteem. So I was like, oh, that's cool. How do I do more of that? So then I started kind of really diving deeper, and I started watching podcasts, reading a bunch more. And I started hearing about these various different types of amazing types of people doing all kinds of crazy kind of running distances. And I was like, I want to do that kind of stuff. How do I do that? So I started making plans on figuring out how to do that. And then, so I'll share this one story. In February of 2021, I wanted to really push the envelope for myself. And this is probably 6 months after I started running, 7 months after I started running. I set a challenge for myself to see if I could run 21 kilometers every single day for 7 days. And so I started off with running 11 kilometers each day. And then every week I added 1 kilometer. And eventually after 10 weeks, I got to 21. And boom, same thing happened when I ran that first 21 kilometers. Like that 6 months earlier, I did something that I thought in a million years I ran 140 kilometers in 7 days. I was like, okay, that's possible. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, now I know I can kind of get after it. So I then said, okay, you know what? I want to do something for other people. So this is where the seva and service starts coming into play, because I started seeing how this was affecting me, and then I saw how it was affecting the people around me in a positive way, just based on what I was doing, and it was inspiring them. And I was like, holy, that's pretty cool. Like, these people are getting inspired. So then I set a challenge from February until November. I trained myself to run 100 kilometers in 1 day. So November 7th, 2021, I ran from a town called Chilliwack, BC, in British Columbia, to the Vancouver International Airport, and it's a 100 kilometer distance. So I ran that 100 kilometers in just under 15 hours, and I raised $21,000 for a charity that supports veterans and first responders with PTSD and occupational stress injuries. So a lot of mental health related issues that veterans deal with. I raised that money. And so now you would think that would have made me super happy, but it didn't. I was super depressed even further. Because after I had done that, I was like, oh shit, now what do I do? And now I was even more isolated now, because everyone's like, okay, you're just mental. Like, I can't relate to you. What are you doing? Right? So now I'm pretty much like crickets everywhere. It's a ghost town. So I hit a dark spot, like mentally and emotionally. And if I even sit and remember how I was feeling, it was I'll get emotional thinking about it. That's how bad it was in terms of my mental health. And so what I did was I ended up meeting someone on Instagram through social media, this veteran served in the Canadian Armed Forces, and he's an older guy. He's retired. He's 60 years old. And so he the reason why I connected with this guy and he connected with me, he saw what I did and thought it was pretty cool. So we started following each other on Instagram. And why I thought he seemed pretty interesting was because he was a Tier 1 operator, retired. So for your listeners who may not know, a Tier 1 operator is Special Forces. So in Canada, we have a Special Forces team called Joint Task Force 2, JTF2, which is pretty much the tip of the spear as it comes to military performance and executing against pretty secret tasks. And so the JTF2 would be the equivalent to, let's say, Green Berets or SAS or these types of Royal Marines, these types of people.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, cool. I want to talk to this guy. So he lives about 10 hours drive away from me. So anyway, we eventually one day we connected in December of 2021. He was in the Vancouver area. We went for a coffee. We ended up chatting for about 3 hours, and man, it helped me in terms of my mental health, right? And talking to a guy that I can relate to this guy. So from there, I was like, hey man, is it cool if I continue talking to you? And he was like, yeah, cool. If you think it'll help you. I was like, yeah, man, for sure. And so what ended up happening, I ended up learning a lot more about this guy. So he wasn't only a Tier 1 operator, Special Forces guy, pretty much a badass at everything, right? He retired, had a few businesses, then eventually became a endurance athlete himself. He started riding these mountain bikes and doing 24-hour mountain bike races. He became a world champion in his early 40s. And then for 15 years, he became an elite performance coach for pretty much the top tier athletes all over the world. And he ended up training 6 world champions in the sport that he was training them in. And he's trained thousands of people at a high level. So for me, there was a connection there because I was doing some endurance stuff. And so I was like, oh, maybe I can tap on this guy and get some more guidance. Anyway, so what ended up happening for about 2 or 3 months, because I asked for his if he could talk and chat with me. For 2 or 3 months, almost every single day, for 2 to 3 hours every single day, we would Zoom call. And I want to be pretty honest here and pretty straightforward here. He saved my life because I was so depressed. I was such in a bad spot, and I felt like no one else was, I could relate to no one else. True or not, that's how I thought. And this guy spent a ton of time performance coaching me out of where my head was. Like, I was freaking depressed, man. And it was, had I not met this guy, I don't know where I'd be now, because what I'm doing now is exceptional. So this guy helped me out. I ended up kind of, sorting some stuff out and kept training. And then I just got after what he helped me realize what my purpose was in life. He helped me lower the white noise that I kind of have in my head, and like a lot of people probably do. And I refined my purpose, and then I just established what my purpose in life is, and then I got after it starting 2022. So what my purpose was seva. So I just want to be of service, right? And not ask for anything in return, just do what I need to do. And number 2, I wanted to maximize my skill sets for everyone around me. That's it. I wanted to be the best version of myself for everyone around me. So how did I interpret that? So what I ended up doing was, from March of 2022 till November of 2022, I ran an ultra marathon every single month, and raising money for another charity called Honor House Society, which services all first responders and people in uniform with occupational stress injuries. And so for your listeners who may not know what an ultra marathon is, because I didn't know what it was 2 years ago, an ultra marathon is 50 kilometers or more in one go, right? So what I ended up doing, I ended up running a bunch of these, all like from March, January, I'm losing my train of thought. March all the way till November. I ended up running a ton, man. And I ended up raising, so then on November 6th, 2022, I ran 90 kilometers to close off my fundraising season. And I ended up raising $15,000 for this charity. And so really what I established doing was, I set a goal for 2025. And everything that I've been doing now, last year, and what I'm going to do next year is to prepare me for that. And what I'm being prepared for is I'm training full time. I'm taking a leave of absence from work so I could focus 100% of my energy, 100% focus into figuring out how to beat the record for the fastest run across Canada. So Canada is 7,300 kilometers, and the current record to run across Canada was done last year, and it was done in 67 days, 10 hours. So that's in and around 105 kilometers of running every single day for 67 days. So for me, I'm trying to beat that record, so that would mean I'd have to run 108 kilometers every single day for 66 days. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is to raise awareness for mental health. And so let me lay the foundation so maybe your listeners can understand why are you running across Canada? Who cares? Well, there's a guy named Terry Fox, and he basically, what he did 40 years ago, he was a young man of the age of 22. He had cancer, and he had his leg amputated because of the cancer. And during his treatment, he saw a lot of children in the hospital suffering with cancer, and he was like, why is this happening? Why are these children suffering? I want to do something. So he ended up creating something called a Marathon of Hope. A Marathon of Hope, what he wanted to do was run across Canada on one leg and a prosthetic. Now, a prosthetic 40 years ago was not like how they are now. They're very, prehistoric. They don't work well. So he ended up running halfway across Canada, and then his cancer came back, and he died from his cancer, achieving halfway across Canada. So there's statues of this man in our country, all over this country. He's one of the most respected men. Like, anybody who's Canadian, that's the guy, right? It's like so running across Canada is a thing. So for all Canadians, it's a big deal. And for what he did since he's been dead, it's been 40 years. And since he's been dead, in his name, $1 billion has been raised for cancer research. So I was like, okay, I want to do that. I have both legs, and I can train. I'm fit, so let's figure this out. So what I wanted to do was figure out a way to galvanize the entire country around a common goal, which is mental health. So really what I've been trying to do is not only train, but also figure out how to do that. And so that's kind of what I'm doing now.
No, it's a complete kind of 360. Like, you've gone from, and like, how many artists can literally say, I went from being an artist in their lights, stages, the glory, to then, admitting you went from mental health to now just being there to help people in need. But one question I want to kind of ask, and I know we're running short of time, is, we spoke about, we're warriors. We spoke about, we're from a lineage of, kings, royalty, etc. Why do you think it's so hard to sometimes accept that even warriors suffer from mental health? Even warriors, need a shoulder to cry on? Like, this kind of stigma of men, having this pride in ego of like, we can't show feelings, we can't show emotions. Why is that still there? Because all it's doing is just impacting, a father's son. Because the son will think that this is how man behaves. He will treat his son, this is how, men behave. The phrases like, man up, don't cry. Like, what's wrong with you? Are you a woman? These are terms, if we look at it, they have an impact on someone's life, right? But why are we still kind of stuck? Why are we still stuck in this kind of corner of like, we think this is how you behave, this is how men behave in our culture?
No, that's an awesome question, man. And I've been thinking a lot about that over the last couple of years. And I don't have an answer. I only have, my perspective and kind of what I've gleaned over the last couple of years. And our community is struggling big time. And I think the fundamental reason is because of the ego gets in everyone's way. Everyone wants to talk about being Punjabi and being sick and all this kind of stuff, but no one really walks the walk, right? Look, and I'm not saying I'm amazing. I'm barely average at best, but I'm trying to do my best every single day. Like, I'm actually trying every single day to be the best version of myself. So what's that mean, man? Like, yeah, in Sikhi, I'm trying to adopt the core Sikhi values in my life, right? So what that means is compassion for people. Now, how are you compassionate if you're talking crap about people, right? They as compassion, right? So how are you compassionate about someone if you're talking garbage about them? Or you're saying, oh, this guy's mental, this, that, and the other. You know, a lot of us talk all these things. Everyone goes to Gurdwara or does this, that, and the other. But who's actually walking the walk, man? Like, no, I don't see that many people walking the walk. So what I wanted to do for myself was walk the walk. I wanted to just do that. And for me, what I've recognized is a lot of people have their ego up front. Oh yeah, I know what's up. I know what's up. Oh yeah, I don't want to look scared. You know, like all these things. Because they haven't seen hard people. They don't know what real legit men are. I'll tell you what, I've met some over the last 2 years. I've met real men, real. Like I met a guy, Mark Ormond. He's from England. He was a British Royal Marine. He's had 2 legs amputated in his arm, and he's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Started jiu-jitsu after he got amputated. That's a hard man. And if you talk to him, he's not gonna talk shit. He will show emotion. He'll be kind to you. He'll be compassionate towards you. Like, that's what a real man is. A man lifts another person up when they fall in, not keep them down, right? And that's what, at least that's what I think we should be doing. Like, I don't want to talk shit about nobody, man. I'm super happy at all the new artists doing what they're doing. It's awesome to see. It's so amazing. I want to pump them up even more because you got guys crossing over into mainstream. That's what we wanted to do, man.
Yeah.
And we didn't even get there. But these guys are crossing 5 million Instagram followers for Karan Aujla. Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's so amazing. And I remember when it was 30 years ago, I was, maybe no more, 35 years ago, I'm like 10 years old. I'm walking in Mississauga, Ontario with a friend of mine we're in grade, I don't know, 6 or something, like 10 years old. And we were listening to Punjabi back, Bomb the Tumbi, Balwinder Safri, all this stuff, right?
Right there.
And that's all we listened to.
Safri, right there in the back. Where is it?
Right? Yeah. Legend, right? We're listening to that stuff all the time. And I'm talking to my buddy, oh, how cool would it be if they played this on the radio? 35 years later, they're playing it on the radio. I never thought in a million years that would happen. Never. And now we're listening to it on the radio, man. So why would we shit on them? Lift them up. All right, that's awesome. So for me, I'm all about, if I can, help with whatever skill sets I have, like just to elevate people. And what I, like, I'm starting to recognize and see some of the metrics that are coming out of just people around me. And look, man, I wasn't running 2 years ago. And by the time I'm done, it'll be within a 5-year span, going from not running at all to running 100 kilometers every single day and raising millions of dollars for people that need it. So anything is possible if you want to do it. Anything. And anything's achievable. If you go all in and actually get after it and stop whining, complaining, saying, oh, this is me, this is like whining. Everyone's whining. No one's doing anything. No action. Zero. I'm all about action.
You know what? I think that is a pretty bang on point to end, right? Lil Sach, listen, where can people follow your journey? Where can people follow your journey? Like, you know, people want to reconnect with you, you know?
Yeah, man. So we got a YouTube channel, at Such in Motion. I have my Instagram, which all my fundraising efforts, all my crazy kind of stuff that I do physically is all on my Instagram. So at such.in.motion. TikTok, Such in Motion. What else we got? I got a website, www.suchinmotion.ca. So anybody who wants to look at what I do or support what we're trying to do, how, like, actually help people out, that's where you can go find out.
So, Sach, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Reminiscing.
Pleasure's mine, brother.
100%. Like, no, I wish we could talk more about the music, but obviously time is of the essence. But Sach, much love and respect, man.
You too, bro, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you. I appreciate BRIT Asia TV for this reminiscing and flashback, because I do love that. I love the music and I love everything that you guys are doing, and keep getting after it, man. You guys are doing amazing stuff, so it's awesome. Love it.